Guys, so tonight is the first Wednesday Night Rivalry game on NBCSN, and it's Pittsburgh and Washington. So good news for us; it's actually a rivalry. I'm really excited for this game. Tom Wilson's still suspended for Washington, so that kind of takes some of the heat out of it. But it's still a good matchup. It's still two good teams. Pittsburgh got off to a bit of a rocky start, but seems to have righted the ship, and Washington's got off to a blazing start, especially Alex Ovechkin. They're scoring a ton of goals, so it should be a pretty good game. Should be really fun to watch. Hopefully there's some animosity built up between the teams. I mean, they're natural rivals, and they played in the playoffs last year, so there should be some, at least a little bit of emotion in the game, which we haven't seen a lot of so far this season. A lot of cross-conference matchups early in this season, so that's one of the reasons why the emotion level, fighting, physicality has been really down so far. We haven't seen these, in division rivalry games yet. There's been a lot of East versus West games, and I'm kind of glad the NHL is getting those over with, because the beginning of the season is usually kind of slow and boring to begin with. So if you get the games that are naturally going to be that way, between teams that don't see each other a lot, over with at the beginning, that kind of gets them out of the way. And then as we get into the season, you're going to see a lot more of the in-division, heated rivalry games like Pittsburgh and Philly, Pittsburgh, Washington, pretty much the whole metropolitan division. They're usually all over each other. Other divisions as well, like in the Atlantic, Boston, Montreal, Boston, Toronto, Toronto, Montreal. All these rivalry games haven't happened yet. They're going to be more, in the middle of the season, which I think is a good thing. But getting back on track, Wednesday Night Rivalry tonight, a real rivalry. I'm excited. It's nice that they're actually starting it with a real rivalry, because we know, if you've watched any of these games in the past, you know that it's kind of hit or miss. They stretch what's a rivalry sometimes. I'm sorry, the Rangers and Blackhawks may be both original six teams, but they haven't been rivals since they switched conferences. I mean, that's not a rivalry. They only play each other twice a year. Like some of these games that they call rivalries just aren't close. But this one is, I believe, next week, Chicago and St. Louis, so that's also a real rivalry. So we're off to a good start, NBC. I'm sure that it's probably easy to get rivalry games at the beginning of the year that are actually rivalries, and then as we get into the dog days of the season, when's Carolina Columbus going to be on Wednesday Night Rivalry? Because something like that's going to happen at some point. Or like Tampa Bay and the Islanders, or something like just some ridiculous thing that's not at all a real rivalry. We want to see, at least I want to see, Pittsburgh, Philly, Rangers, Washington, Rangers, Philly, Boston, Montreal, Boston, Toronto, games like that against teams in the same division that really don't like each other. In games that will really have some emotion and some hate in them. And I love the concept of Wednesday Night Rivalry. I think NBC did a fantastic job, whoever came up with that idea, to have a weekly national televised game that is between two bitter rivals and teams that don't like each other. Hockey's built on rivalries. Hockey's most exciting when it's nasty, physical, and there's animosity between the teams, and rivalries create that. And if you showcase that every week on national television, it's going to make the fans happy. Their execution has been some games are really good, others you're like, these teams aren't rivals. Sorry, Pittsburgh and Chicago isn't a rivalry. Pittsburgh and San Jose is not a rivalry. These cross-conference games should never be on Wednesday Night Rivalry. But even like Boston and Tampa Bay, that's not a rivalry. Boston and Pittsburgh, a little bit. They've had some nasty games, but even that, they're in the same conference but not the same division. I think Wednesday Night Rivalry should only be games between two teams in the same division. That's just me. So, that's pretty much it. Just first ones tonight. Hopefully it's a good game. I think it should be really fun to watch, and I'll certainly be watching. 7:30 NBCSN. Hope you watch too. Like, share, comment, subscribe, spread the word. We want this channel to grow. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.